Welcome to another episode of the Federal's Worldly Wise, a program that attempts to deconstruct, explain, and analyze global issues. I am Dakshina Murthy. Benjamin Netanyahu is the latest villain occupying media space almost everywhere since he began Israel's brutal attack on Palestinians in Gaza over 5 months ago. This in retaliation against the October 7 attack by the Hamas on Israel. Around 1,200 Israelis died in that attack. Since then, Netanyahu's forces have killed over 31,000 Palestinians. Thousands more have been injured in Israel's bombarding of Gaza, a kind not witnessed in many years. This tiny strip has been almost flattened. Many around the world are calling it a genocide. In fact, there are several who suspect, and justifiably so, that the Netanyahu government is using the Hamas attack as the perfect excuse to evict Palestinians from the occupied territory of Gaza, a decades-old plan that predates October 7. If Netanyahu is viewed as a villain, the US President Joe Biden is seen as a bigger culprit. As the biggest supporter of Israel, the US, and by extension Joe Biden, is being blamed, even within by Americans, for shielding the Israeli government from accountability and not halting the offensive against Gaza. As has always been the case, the US has used its veto power in the UN Security Council to quash any resolution that may go against Israel. Supporting the US state is the so-called independent and free media in that nation, most of whom have unabashedly glossed over Israeli excesses in Gaza. In the next few months, the US will elect its next president. Biden is already facing the heat from a section of the US electorate, which feels uncomfortable with his support for Israel. Many among fellow Democrats too are resentful against Biden. In response to the backlash, the president recently sent some humanitarian aid for Gazans, but it has been too little too late. US surveys have in fact registered a drop in support for Biden, even among fellow Democrats, for his handling of the Gaza crisis. In an Associated Press-led survey last month, only 46% of Democrats backed Biden's policy in Gaza, while 31% of the overall population supported him in general. In the same poll, more than half of those surveyed felt that Israel had gone too far in its war on Gaza. In a general popularity poll, Biden led Trump by just 1 percentage point, according to another recent poll. But the real question is, if Biden loses in the elections and is replaced by Donald Trump, who is most likely to be his challenger, will it change anything? Will Trump be more sympathetic to Palestinians? The answer is fairly simple. Trump will not make any difference to the US stand on Gaza. It could even get worse. Let's take a look at the track record of Trump on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict when he was president from 2016 to 2020. His administration officially recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel for the first time, much to the anger of Palestinians. East Jerusalem, under the two-state plan, was to be the capital of an independent Palestine. And that was a hope that the Palestinians had kept with them for a very long time. In the 1967 Six-Day War, Israel annexed East Jerusalem. The western part of the city was anyway granted to Israel. After its occupation of East Jerusalem, the United Nations refused to recognize it as part of Israel. In other words, it is an illegal occupation. But Trump went ahead and recognized it by shifting the US embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Another pointer against Trump was under his rule, a peace plan in 2020, grandly touted as the deal of the century, envisaged an independent Palestine which would exclude all the illegal settlements in West Bank and Gaza, illegal settlements of the Jews. In other words, it would redraw the map of an independent Palestine, leaving it riddled with these settlements. The peace move was ridiculed as it was unviable. Incidentally, there was no Palestinian in Trump's team that came up with this deal. Trump essentially wanted to let Israel keep whatever territory it had occupied along with the illegal settlements and leave a patchy and unworkable Palestine. The deal of the century made a mockery of whatever possibility remained of any peace agreement. The erstwhile Republican president, in fact, slashed $200 million worth dollars for reconstruction projects in the West Bank and Gaza. He also cut $300 million for Palestinian refugees. The Trump administration shut down the Palestinian Liberation Organization's diplomatic mission in Washington, D.C. and stopped funding for the UNWRA, or the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees. In fact, if there was one president who wore his disdain for Palestinians on his sleeves, that was Trump. And not only that, Donald Trump managed to intensify discord among the Arab countries and vastly helped Israel by pushing the Abraham Accords, according to which the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco signed friendship treaties with Israel. He almost managed to get Islam's top Sunni Muslim nation, Saudi Arabia, too, into the agreement. But the ruler, Mohammed bin Salman, backtracked, preferring to postpone that to another day. Irrespective of who is in power, it is the US establishment that firmly backs Israel. No change of guard at the top is going to make any difference. In the near past, even someone promising, like the country's first black president, Barack Obama, who had showed signs of following an independent policy on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, backtracked once in power. As his term was about to end, Obama feebly tried to put up an independent position, but that hardly made any difference. Within the US, the Jewish Zionist lobby is a powerful force right from the period after the Second World War. Aspiring politicians cannot thrive, leave alone survive, without its support. Biden, incidentally, for all his opposition to Trump, supported the Abraham Accords, and Trump's move to shift the US embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So, the fulcrum of US policy in the Middle East rests on his unconditional support for Israel, prompting some to even call it the 51st state of the United States. So, this is something we cannot overlook. Here is an overriding example of the closeness between the United States and Israel. For instance, there is a clear-cut documentary evidence that Israel is a nuclear weapons state, but successive Israeli governments have officially never denied or confirmed it. Iran, on the other hand, is attempting to build its own nuclear power plants, and the West claims it harbors a weapons program too. UN inspectors have never really confirmed this categorically. Yet, the US has applied tremendous pressure on Iran to back off from its nuclear program, while never asking Israel to come clean on its nuclear infrastructure. It is understandable that people horrified by the goings on in Gaza would like to clutch at any straw to halt Israel's offensive. Unfortunately, Trump, or for that matter, no other US president can be that strong.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.